Our next speaker is Professor Yossi Loya. He's a zoology professor at Tel Aviv University and a member of the Israel Academy of Arts and Sciences, and he'll be presenting on local stressors amplifying the dire consequences of global warming on coral reefs. Welcome.
Can you hear me? Okay, we are all gathered here to express our deep concern on the fate of coral reefs. I'll be talking on two subjects. First, the global effects or dire consequences of global warming to coral reefs. And second, going from global to local, talking about the problems of local stressors that amplify the global warming effects on coral reefs. So I'll have to thank Ove first for cutting my lecture in few slides. And the 2019 Global Assessment Report on Biodiversity and Ecosystem Services of the IPBS and PICCC warned that almost half of the world's coral reefs have been lost. Almost half of the world's coral reefs have been lost. We have to remember that, and Ove said that several times. Even if the most ambitious global temperature target of the Paris Agreement is met, reefs are projected to decline by 70 to 90%. At 2 degrees centigrade, this increases to 99% loss of coral reefs. I had the opportunity to work in the reefs of Okinawa for several summers, and I've been there during the awful bleaching that happened all around Okinawa in August 1998. The water temperature was only 1.5 degrees above the average, and this is how the reefs looked before, during, and after. There was total mortality of about 80% of the coral reefs around Okinawa, all because of the increase in temperature. And this is published in one of the my most cited papers on coral bleaching, the winners and the losers. Who are the winners and who are the losers when you have such catastrophes? We've heard already from Ove what's happening on the Great Barrier Reef, 2,700 kilometers seen from the space. The problem and its popular solution, I call it the solution. A widely accepted assertion among coral reef workers is that the dire state of coral reefs is due to global warming, the major cause for coral bleaching, resulting in their mass global mortality. And the only sure way to solve the world's coral reefs is climate change mitigation. I agree with this assertion. However, as recently portrayed in The Economist, that you can see here, stating that global warming cannot be limited to 1.5 degrees centigrade, and a dose of realism is needed at COP27, explaining why climate policy is off target. I recommend to read that. So if this is true, coral reefs are likely to continue and decline. During COP27, we shall all continue our struggle to limit global warming. However, our urgent plea is in the hands of politicians and decision makers. And for many developed countries, it is in contrast to their economic interests. While we all hope that the resolution achieved during COP27 will advance the Paris and Glasgow agreements, it is of utmost importance that we won't neglect fighting against local environmental threats that amplify and intensify the dire consequences of global warming to coral reefs. And here is a caricature by WWF listing the local threats to coral reefs, which I've already talked about them. They're all listed here. So besides continuing our struggle to limit global warming, the question is, what can we do, not the politicians, in order to rescue the world's coral reefs? And the general answer is that we need to prevent local stressors that exacerbate the disastrous consequences of global warming to coral reefs. And the way to do it by increasing coral protection, minimizing acute local stressors, promoting the development of MPAs, prudently restoring damaged reefs, encouraging reef resilience and adaptation of social ecological systems of coral reefs. Now from global, I'll go to local, and I'll tell you the story of, I'll provide an example of the catastrophic consequences of prolonged multiple local stressors to the coral reefs of Eilat. And this is a 50-year study, a case history study, that I'll go through in 5 minutes. 50 years in 5, but I need 5. 50 years. Okay, I'll try to go very quickly and apologize if I go so quickly. So here is a timeline of an historical outlook. I call the years prior to 1970 as the golden years, 71 to 79, the oil pollution reefs, 80 to 95, the sewage years, 95 to 2009, the fish cages years, and 2010, 2020, years of hope. The future, though, is bleak. The golden years are right here. Fantastic biodiversity. As a matter of fact, the reefs of Eilat at that time were more diverse per given area than anywhere else in the world, in shallow water. And that's all in papers. The oil pollution years is a sad story, just to show you the 2 terminals of oil right here, which are very close to the nature reserve. And
Can you take it back for a second?
to shock you perhaps with what happens or what happened during those years in Eilat, the whole nature reserve was covered black by oil. Okay? There were 2 to 3 crude oil spills every month, going on and on between 71 and 79. And we did research on the our red lab coral was Stylophora pistillata, the most abundant coral in the Red Sea or in the northern Gulf of the Red Sea. And its reproductive unit is a planula larvae that you see is changing its size, settling, and creating a mature coral, which is about 10 years old, as you can see there. Field studies, and I'll go very fast, are what we found is higher mortality of colonies, fewer planulae shed per coral head, very low or absence of recruitment. In the lab studies and histological studies, we found damage to the reproductive organs of corals, lower number of colonies in reproduction, lower life expectancy of planulae in increasing concentrations of oil, and perhaps the most dramatic story is the premature planula shedding abortion effect that, if you'd like, I'll tell you about it later on. So with the termination of the oil transports from Iran in 1980, the oil pollution at the Eilat reefs stopped completely. However, and this is a red one, from 1980, Eilat's population started growing in an exponential rate, and the new acute stressor began threatening the reef. And we are talking on the sewage years. What you see here is not a river. Eilat is very dry, like Sharem, no rivers in Eilat. This is a river of sewage growing, and you can see the outlet of the sewage right there. The result, the sewage was about 2.5 million cubic meters per year. Think about it later on. After building the sewage treatment facility in 1995, Eilat sewage stopped polluting the Gulf. However, again in red, a new severe hazard replaced the sewage, and that is the fish cages. That probably many of you heard about it. And the fish cages were the recipe how to kill a coral reef. And you kill a coral reef by nutrient pollution. That's what happened with the fish cages. As a matter of fact, the fish were fed by 4,200 tons per year of fish pellets, polluting the reef by 300 tons of nitrogen and 400 tons of phosphate every year. The result you can see here. Nutrient pollutions encouraging growth of algae. Algae are the #1 killer of corals, and the result is smothering and killing the corals, and you can see how they look like there. And this is the whole story in 1 second, which gives you what happened between 1969 and 2015 and later on in terms of cover and number of colonies per transect of 10 meters. You can see that the general idea is of huge decrease, and to give you perspective, it means that there were 68% less or minus in 2004 compared to 1986, and 60% less in 2004. That means that out of 10 corals alive in 86, only 4 corals remained alive in 2015. The situation is much better. The situation is much, much better. We see resilience of the reef. Maoz will talk about that. But the future is very bleak. And the future is very bleak because of the new agreement between UAE, the joint Israeli UAE venture. I'm writing it here, I won't read it. But what I'm calling this is an environmental ticking bomb. Because if a spill, there are 250,000 super tankers that are planned to arrive to Eilat, okay? Now, a spill of only 1% of the contents of such a tanker to the sea means circa 1.6 million barrels spreading oil over the Gulf, covering the coasts and reefs of Eilat, Aqaba, and Sinai. Black oil. So in reiterating the scientist's letter to the Israeli government, this is an urgent appeal to the upcoming new Israeli government. B'atzlacha. What you see here are the all reasons or threats that are the coral reefs, and our plea is, please help us save the Gulf by stopping the implementation of the MOU between AIPAC and Med-Red Land Bridge. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Loya. It's a really important message about conservation and restoration in the Red Sea.